It's time for another edition of Out and About with Jamie Grout, and this time around I'm looking forward to talking to longtime farm broadcaster, WHO Radio, Bob Quinn. He's a great guy, and I worked with him back in the 1980s, a long time ago, when the WHO Radio studios were 2 blocks to the east at 1801 Grand Avenue, and he has many great stories to tell, and it's going to be fantastic, so hang on for that. But first, a word from our sponsors. First of all, Ryan's Tire and Auto on First Avenue in Newton. Ryan's Tire and Auto, they don't offer percentage discounts, phony sales pitches, or misleading ads. Ryan's Tire and Auto, their everyday prices are already discounted, and they have continuous great service. They smash the competition. Stop in and see them, because at Ryan's, the owner is who you deal with each and every day, and they truly appreciate this great community, and you'll appreciate their great service at Ryan's Tire and Auto at 1607 First Avenue East in Newton. Give them a call at 641-841-2134 at Ryan's Tire and Auto. Also, don't forget Mercy One Newton sponsoring this podcast and their gala coming up. It's a big fundraiser for Mercy One, and mark your calendar. It is Saturday, April 26th. I'll be the auctioneer for that at the DMAC Newton Conference Center at 600 North 2nd Avenue West at 5:30. Their social time gets underway with a silent auction. At 7 o'clock, they'll have their dessert auction and dinner, and at 8:30, they'll have their live auction. That's the big Mercy One Gala. You'll want to check that out and mark it on your calendar. It'll be a lot of fun. Also, we want to thank Justin Goodfellow at American Family Insurance, another one of our sponsors. You betcha. Life is better at American Family Insurance when you're under their roof there. You betcha, because of their agents that can help you choose insurance to help protect what matters most. Life insurance from American Family Insurance Company can help financially protect your loved ones by replacing a portion of your income if you were to pass away. Now, that means your family could have the help they need to continue to pursue your dreams. Contact Justin Goodfellow, agent at Justin Goodfellow Agency, LLC, at 641-792-8438 today. Products not available in all states. American Family Life Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin. Also by Jersey Freeze, opening up March 13th in Monroe. Back again as a sponsor, and they will be sponsoring Weekend Out and About with Jamie Grout podcast trivia, home of the Van and Bonbon Jersey Freezer, and Advantage Credit Union.
If you've been fouled by your financial institution, then blow the whistle. This is Coach Miles from Advantage Credit Union with some one-on-one for a financial victory. At ACU, you're treated like you own the team because you actually do. Advantage Credit Union offers great deposit rates. You actually earn interest instead of paying a monthly fee at you know where.
Bank shot, good!
If you live or work in Jasper County or 18 other central Iowa counties, you are eligible to join. Visit us in downtown Newton or online at acuiowa.org. It's a game winner at ACU.
Member NCUA.
Time for another Out and About with Jamie Grout, and this time I'm excited to talk to a guy that I go way back with, Bob Quinn, and he's the longtime farm director here at WHO Radio. Let's reminisce a little bit, Bob.
Sure.
You say you remember me from the 1980s. For real?
Yeah, I was 4 years old then. Started out in radio at that time.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to do the farm report now. This was at 1801 Grand, and I had gotten fired from my job at a radio station in Osceola. I was there for what they say as a cup of coffee for 4 months, and I just drove up I-35, and I thought, what the hell, I'm going to apply at WHO. And it must have been hard up for people, because the program director, Jed Duvall, hired me to work overnights for a Saturday night, Sunday morning, and then they added more shifts as I got more experienced. And I remember running the board for you, specifically in that little studio they had us at for a while, off the newsroom at 1801 Grand. I don't know if you remember that or not, but you had the early morning shift. And I gotta say, Bob, I'm glad you're still here, because you're part of the old guard at WHO, the last of the people that have been here for so long. How long have you been at WHO now?
I started at WHO Radio in March of 1983.
Okay,
So we're talking 42 years.
Yes.
I walked in the door here. Keith Kirkpatrick hired me. Keith and Leah were in the farm department. A young fellow named Mark Pearson was in the farm department at the time. And Patty Christensen. Patty was our market reporter in the farm department. And so Mark was going to move, I believe, to Successful Farming Magazine. And so he went over to SF, and I came in and actually took Mark's place at that time. Now, Mark and I worked together here 3 other times because he came back in different roles over the years. And then the last time that we had, Mark was in the farm department. I know I'm getting off in the weeds here, but he was in the farm department with Gary Wergen doing the big show, and I was the farm director at the time. That was many years later. But yeah, I started, to answer your original question, in March of 1983.
Okay, and I must have been here maybe a year or so after you got here, because you were fairly new, and everybody was talking about you because, oh, this guy, he just came in, and he'd been here about a year, and he lost so much weight. Everybody was talking about how you how did you lose so much weight?
Well, here's the story. When I came out of college at Iowa State, I was a marathon runner.
Oh.
And so I ran, and then I didn't run for a while, and there was no reason other than it was just a change in attitude, and so I wasn't running anymore. But I was eating like I was still running. And so you can't do that very long without gaining weight. So actually, before I lost a lot of weight, I gained a lot of weight.
Okay.
And they didn't see the upswing on that. They saw I started running again, and I ran at long distances, and you can eat a lot and survive there. In fact, I ran I used to run the Drake Relays. That was our home marathon, and it was difficult to train for Drake, because your training, the height of your training is in the dead of winter. And it's tough to get outside in Des Moines, to do a lot of road work, and you've got to do extended road work because marathons aren't run on the track, although I did run a marathon on a track.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I ran one on the Drake indoor track. Now, believe it or not, and the indoor track is much smaller than the outdoor track, of course. And the indoor track at Drake is banked heavily. At least it was in the old field house. And so we ran a mile one direction and then ran a mile the other direction on the track. So we have to keep changing directions.
Okay.
So you had a lot of people. You had to have a counter because you can't keep track of the laps yourself. It'd drive you crazy. So you have someone counting for you. And then all of a sudden you have people coming straight at you again. So it was interesting. But we did run one on the track. But back to the original point there is that we trained a lot in the snow and on tough streets, and then we ran the Drake Relays. Now, Drake ran a week before the Boston Marathon. And so a lot of people said, well, if you're going to be a big marathoner, you should run the Boston Marathon. And I had qualified once. You have to qualify for Boston. And I had qualified one time, but I chose to run at Drake. That was my home marathon. So that one, and then I would run another, maybe one, and in a good year, maybe 2 marathons throughout the year. So I'd run 2-3 a year for many years.
Really?
Yeah.
What made you decide you wanted to get into marathons anyway?
I never really liked running, and this is odd because I never really liked running a lot when I was in school. In high school and college, running was always something you either did because you were being punished
Sure.
for doing something stupid, or to train for another sport. And I found that I liked the training much more than I did the competition, even at the marathon level. For me, the training and being able to discipline yourself and do that was much more enjoyable to me than the actual race itself. You do silly things in a race. You plan for the race, and the marathon is a race that you have to plan for and continue to plan for, and on race day you throw the plan out the window because it could be raining. There could be some guy that's egging you on to chase him. So the discipline was built up in the training, and that was always my reward, was really the training. So kind of odd way to say, that's how I got started in running. It was by no means something that I had planned on doing, but ended up doing because I liked the discipline and the time. If you get good at it, get beyond the time where you feel like your lungs are going to blow out of your chest.
Yeah.
If you get good at it, then you can lock on to a pace and just run, and you can really use your mind then to.
You kind of escape, don't you?
Oh, you do. You climb inside yourself, and you climb inside your head, and you can really get a lot of things thought about and a lot of problem solved.
Did you ever hit that euphoric feeling that some people talk about when you're doing a marathon?
You do, and you get a dump of almost like a painkiller in your body. That, but then I've also hit the wall where your body is totally out of food, and the muscles actually start to feed on themselves, and all of a sudden you're running along and everything aches.
Oh, I bet.
You feel like your toenails are going to fall off. Everything aches at about the 22, 23 mile mark. But yeah, so I enjoyed a lot of running, and that's how, when people always talk about, how'd you lose so much weight? Well, the way you lose weight for me was I gained weight to begin with and got more back to my normal self when I was losing weight.
I see. Well, I just want to tell you, there was an overnight lady at the station on WHO, because I had transitioned. See, I don't know if you remember John King, who was one of the DJs at KLYF. I had worked with him previously part-time at KJJY. I'm not going to go into my whole story because this is about you, but I ended up at WHO, and then the studio right next door, if you recall, at 1801 Grand was KLYF. I was the first full-time overnight guy at KLYF. It had been satellite fed before that, and they needed a part-time guy at KLYF. I started out part-time because of John King, and so I was a board op at WHO first, a producer board op. Then I transitioned over there to KLYF overnights. So I became friends with the overnight person at WHO. And she confided in me, and she had a crush on two people in that building. One was a weather guy at Channel 13, and the other one, Bob, was you. I don't want to embarrass you, but she said, oh, that Bob Quinn, he is so hot.
Yeah, you should have told me this 40 years ago.
Well, yeah, I didn't. We didn't see each other a whole lot because you were working during the day,
And KLYF at the time, it was interesting because it actually started out as WHO AM years before that, and they moved to K-Life, which is music
beautiful
of your
music.
life. And a lot of people called it elevator or background type music, but it was. It wasn't satellite fed at the time.
Yeah.
It was, I think they sent tapes in.
Yeah, it was automated.
Played the reels of tape, but there wasn't any talking on that.
No, and it was then see, the problem was that it had good ratings, but they couldn't sell it because the audience was way old. And so they said, okay, we're going to make this an adult contemporary kind of radio station, like a soft rock radio station. And they did, and for whatever reason, I think radio had more money then. They decided to make it live overnights, which thankfully for me was good, and that turned out good. It was fantastic. But my last 6 months at that radio station, it was a very tumultuous period for Palmer Broadcasting. WHO AM's radio station ratings were not real good, and KLYF's ratings were so-so. We went through in 6 months three different general managers and three different program directors. Now, for KLYF, we went through, I'm trying to think who the first station manager was, and then Dan McCarthy came in, and then finally Steve Shannon came in, and then we had Dennis, I can't remember, he was the general manager for KLYF, and then another general manager. We had, as program director, I had Bob Majors, and then Cal Stout came in, and then a guy came over from Q102. And when Steve Shannon, the guy from Q102, came over, pretty much cleaned house except for one person. And I got the boot. And then I went over to Q102. Enough about me, but I went down the radio road, and it's like the WKRP theme song, town to town and up and down the dial. But it was nice having the experience here. And I want to tell you, Dwayne Murley I work with every morning for the farm block from 5 to 5:30, and he's the new farm guy here at WHO. And I told him this, and I want to tell you this too, Bob. The farm guys here that I ran into at WHO when I was working here for that period of time for about a year, the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. And especially Keith Kirkpatrick, because for whatever reason, one day I was downstairs in the lobby at 1801 Grand with one of the overnight board op producers at WHO. And Keith was there, and we talked because she had some hesitancy about eating meat. And she was thinking about being a vegetarian or something like that, and how animals were treated and all this. And I think Keith Kirkpatrick had kind of reached the legendary status by this point, pretty much. He and Lee, I mean, everybody knew who they were. And she was concerned about that. Keith took 15 minutes to a half hour out of his busy day to explain how livestock producers take so much time to treat their livestock humanely because they want to have a good product to send to the market. And I thought afterwards, you know what? Keith Kirkpatrick did not need to take that time out of his day to do that. He could have said, well, it's business, blah, 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 and then taken the elevator or gone down the hallway to where the farm department was. And I mean, everybody was just, God rest their souls. They were, Mark Pearson too. Very, very nice folks, yourself included, and Dwayne, all very, very nice people. And I think part of that is going out, meeting the public, the farmers, the sponsors, and everybody else. It's just, you guys carry on a great tradition here at WHO.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Keith was a great guy. Keith hired me, and I always wanted to ask Keith before he retired. Now, Keith, the day you hired me, would you consider that to be one of your best days or one of your biggest faux pas in the industry? And I never did get a chance to ask him that, but Keith hired me, and I worked with Lee. I had the best seat in the house for the Lee Klein program. Lee was a great storyteller, and above all else, just a really great guy.
And I remember buying some of his CDs at the Machine Shed that he was selling.
Yeah, Lee Klein's Notebook. Lee retired in, I believe, about 1995. Keith retired in 1990, as I recall, and I'm terrible with dates. 1990 and Lee in 95. We had another prince of a guy in the farm department, in Gary Worgan. Gary was here for a number of years. And Mark, like I said, Mark came back. Mark Pearson actually came back to host the morning show.
Yes, I remember that. And then he went into sales for a brief period of time too, didn't he?
Yeah, he was in sales for a little bit as he was doing that. The morning show was called Top of the Morning, and Mark was there for a while, and then he left again and went down to, I want to say, Southwest Iowa Community College.
In Creston, I believe.
In Creston, to do some work with them, and then ended up with an Edward Jones office in Winterset. And then he came back. He called one day because he had been doing market to market. And again, we're getting lost in a lot of the history here. But the market to market television program on Iowa Public Television, which still exists today. Paul Yeager's a great young guy. There's a great host, and Mark was hosting market to market at the time. Chet Randolph started market to market out of the WHO radio farm department. Chet was one of our broadcasters in there as well. And he started that program, and then he retired out of it, and Mark took it over for a number of years. But Mark was doing television with them, and then came back with Gary Worgan to host the noon farm program. And I was farm director there, and I was doing mornings, because I was always a morning guy. And, you know, it's funny because all through my school and life, I was never a morning type person. I didn't know there were 2 5 o'clocks in the same day. And that's where I ended up here. And so I started doing mornings, and then Mark and Gary did the noon hour, and they came in one day and they said, we need to have a name for our program. I said, oh, okay. Well, what are you thinking about? And they kind of looked at each other, and Gary said, well, it's a big show. It's a big program. We got a lot of things going on. Mark said, yeah, let's call it the Big Show. And I said, you guys have no creativity at all. But they call it the Big Show, and that's what we call it today.
It just stuck.
It's a Big Show, yeah.
Oh, that's neat. Let's go back to your early days in radio. Did you start out in Ottumwa at KBIZ?
I started out at a tiny station in Fairfield, Iowa.
Oh, sure. You bet.
I was at KMCD in Fairfield,
sure.
which I joke about it, is if you were parked out in front, you could hear it. It was an AM and FM radio station.
Sure.
And FM radio, for folks that don't know that, FM is a line of sight. So you have to be able to see the tower, basically. Well, the tower was built in a valley there, so it barely made it back into town, and was there for a little while, and then went into farm. When the farm job opened up at KBIZ in Ottumwa, I went over there, and I was there for about 5 years.
Were
farm
you
radio.
a farm kid in Fairfield? Were you from Fairfield? Or?
No. I was from just south of Des Moines.
Oh.
And my wife and I have a small farm today in St. Charles, which is in Madison County.
Sure.
My mom was born at the Irish settlement there, and my grandfather, my great-great-grandfather on the Quinn side, came over from Ireland and settled in St. Mary's. And if you go to St. Mary's today, there's a big Patrick Quinn colored, glass window, stained glass window in the church. He helped build that church, and he's buried there in the cemetery. So that's where my roots are from, was that St. Mary's, St. Charles area. Then my grandparents moved a little ways further north up to the corner of East 14th and Army Post Road.
Okay.
Is where we had a farm. That was as far north as we went. And then we had mom had a farm in Madison County, and I had an uncle who had a farm in Madison County. So we were just on the south edge of Des Moines, and I went to Iowa State and graduated from Iowa State. The only thing I knew was ag. I mean, I was a farm kid, that wasn't going to go into farming myself, because the economics at that time, which we repeat about every 15 years, were not conducive for young people to get started in farming. So I went to school, first one in my family to really go to college anywhere, and graduated with a degree and going into farm broadcasting. So
okay.
You don't get too far from what you know best, and that's about all I knew was farm, and I wanted to be involved with it. So I started working for a guy named Dale Williams and another one named Dallas McGinnis.
I've heard of him.
At Iowa State. Those were my two mentors at Iowa State University, and they got me started. And Dale had said all along, you need to be in farm broadcasting. Well, my first radio job it was at Fairfield. I wasn't there very long. But then as soon as the Ottumwa job opened up, which was a farm broadcast job, I believe it was Dale that may have gotten a hold of me and said, hey, you need to go over and look at this job. And so, oddly enough, my wife was from Ottumwa, so we had family there, and that's where I spent 5 years.
So it wasn't really necessarily a passion, it was just kind of a transition for you?
It was, and I think the passion builds. I think the passion was for broadcast and for telling a story. But again, that was my background. That's about all I knew.
Sure.
So you tend to do things you're good at, I guess. And I'm not saying I was great at it, but that was where I had some familiar background.
Sure,
So I was an ag broadcast.
And how long were you at Ottumwa before you came to WHO?
Almost 5 years to the day.
I see. Okay.
Was there until 1983, and then came up here and have been affiliated with WHO Radio ever since. It's funny because there was a guy in the sports department named Jim Zabel.
Of course, a legend.
Yeah, that was here. And Jim and I actually, because we were in TV's building, right? Mm-hmm. And we were shifted around, so we shared an office for a while.
Oh, you did?
And it was a big office, which Jim deserved. There's no doubt about it. But they put me in there with him, and Jim had this monstrous office full of stuff, and I had about a 2 foot by 2 foot workspace.
Oh, is that right?
in there in the corner. And Jim told me at the time, he said, he says, you're a young fella, and you fit in Well, here he says, you could be here your entire career. Of course, that was 43 years ago.
Sure.
And the first thing I said is, no, I'm not going to be here that long. I'm going to move on. I'm going to be called up to the networks, whatever. And so at that time, he was very prophetic when he said
Yes, yeah. You didn't think you'd be here this long at all, did
well,
you?
I don't know that anybody ever thinks they're going to be any place for 40 years. I mean,
Yeah.
at the time, I was only, 25, 26 years old. So I didn't, you can't project 40 years into the future.
Well, I had heard maybe about 4 or 5 years ago that you were going to retire, Bob. Had you planned to retire and then they talked you out of it, or did
No.
what had happened there?
No, I mean, obviously, as you age, you edge towards retirement. I mean,
Sure.
everybody does. That's the natural way that we get out of work.
I was
think.
kind of forced into it, but that's okay. I still
Well-
have some gas in the tank.
And retirement, for me, I don't know what I'd do a lot differently, because this is...
I hear you.
And you mentioned Dwayne, and Dwayne and I talk about this quite a lot. Now, he's younger than I am, but not a lot. He's younger than I am.
Sure.
And we talk about that, and, it's like, what do you do on the weekends?
Yeah.
Well, I go to a farm sale, or I go to my small farm and do things. What are you going to do in retirement?
Yeah.
Go to the farm sale.
Yeah.
So, I don't think my life's going to change a lot.
Right.
We're not the type of people that are going to, move off to the Sun Belt or things like that. We have, our family is here in central Iowa, and grandkids live within about 8 blocks of the house, and we're very happy with that. So, I think, Jamie, and you're going to get the same way, I'm sure, that people look at you and say, you ought to be retiring. And so
Right.
that's a natural question. But no, I don't have any plans. I know that someday I will retire. Yeah.
Well, this spring it'll be 50 years for me in radio.
How about that?
And you're how many? Well, let's go back to Fairfield, and then 43 years here.
43 here. I started, I came out of Iowa State in 1978.
Okay, so I started in 75. So you're not too far behind me.
No, in fact, I started on the student radio station and at WOI radio and television with Dale in Dallas, probably 1977. Would have been.
Okay,
It was
a couple years.
Going into my senior year was.
See, I was in Newton for 16 years, and I've been all over the place, and I didn't expect to be let go, but you know how radio is these days, and competition, just I think yesterday or the day before, the market manager for Cumulus got let go. The operations manager also for Cumulus got let go 2 weeks ago. A bunch of people with Odyssey got let go. Let's face it, for iHeart, a lot of people have been let go. That's kind of how the radio business is these days. And I got let go back in late May, and I had a lot of people encourage me to do a podcast, so that's what I'm doing. And then a friend of mine who had been working here until a couple weeks ago said, hey, we have an opening for producer board op for mornings for WHO. And I thought, well, what the hell? Why not, just go ahead and do that. The salary pays for my gas and then some. And so here I am back in a radio station again.
Yeah.
So why not? And so that's what I'm doing. And it's nice to be here and working with people like you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate what you do. But many people don't understand what you do because we don't get to hear you too much on the radio.
Well, and tell me if I'm wrong when I explain it this way, but for the morning show, and then I'm also doing for Emery's show too, I tell them I'm like the air traffic controller for the morning show. I bring in the news, weather, sports, traffic reports, the markets for Dwayne, the callers, the guests, all that stuff comes in through my 20-channel Wheatstone control board. I communicate with Jeff and explain to him who the callers are, what they want to talk about. I let him know when he has live reads to do. And it's a lot the same with the big show when you do that during middays also. So, I mean, they don't know because they don't hear me talking unless I'm invited to come in. They don't know because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It's like a TV station too, because there's more people behind the scenes at a TV station than there are in front of the camera.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of that way. I can't even see the news person from where I'm sitting, the traffic person, the person that does the traffic reports way on the other side of the 3rd floor. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So, but don't get me wrong, if I have a chance to get on the air, I'm going to do it.
Well, the point that we make, though, from our seat is that we couldn't be on the air without you sitting there.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. I mean, you are the guy that gets us on the air. And you mentioned television. I did television for 10 years here.
Oh, yeah.
I anchored the morning newscast on Channel 13 for 10 years.
Weren't you on Channel 17 too for a
while?
while?
I was on Channel 17 for a little while after that, as well, doing some helping out a friend of mine that was in the business, and ended up working with him for a little bit. But most of my television time was spent with 13, and in that 10-year period, yeah, you see one person, and we started out. I was it. I mean, that was it. Was one person, and then. We had a weather person come in, and one of my first weather people was Tiffany O'Donnell, who is now the mayor of Cedar Rapids.
I know, and I talked to her a few weeks ago. Jeff had her on, and I used to watch her. I was in Waterloo for 10 years, and I told her, because there's like 3 people that are in politics in Cedar Rapids that were anchors on either
yes, there are.
Channel 2 or Channel 9 that are in politics now. So it's just kind of crazy.
Well, you have Liz Mathis, who's in the Iowa State House, and you have Ashley Hinson, who is in our national representative. Now, the thing that you don't know about Ashley maybe is she's a Valley High School grad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Here in West Des Moines. Her younger sister was in class with my son.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so I've known her. And at one time, when Cindy Axney was representing Central Iowa, she was a Valley grad.
Really?
We had 2 people from Valley High School at the same time in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Small world.
Isn't that something?
That's crazy. Bob, I'd love to talk to you. I could talk to you for hours, but I know you're a busy man, and I want to do a short video with you here for a minute before you take off. But it's a pleasure working with you again after all these years, and maybe someday I can produce the big show for you. I hear it's a big job for the big show, so I don't know whether my brain is capable of doing it, but maybe someday. But thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
The legendary Bob Quinn, longtime farm director here at WHO on Out and About with Jamie Grout. This podcast also sponsored by Willowbrook, a part of Wesley Life Park Center. Make your loved one's day by enrolling them in Willowbrook, a Wesley Life Adult Day Center. Willowbrook on the Park Center campus provides a welcoming and stimulating environment that allows participants to maintain independence while receiving support and encouragement. Social engagement, companionship, and enriching opportunities are provided to give participants a purposeful and fulfilling day. Willowbrook's person-centered care includes exercise focused on total health and well-being, and programming that includes music therapy, pet therapy, guest speakers, outings, and much, much more. If you'd like to learn more about Willowbrook, give them a call today at 641-791-4500 to arrange a tour. This podcast also sponsored by the folks at Newton Clinic. If you're not feeling well, make sure you head on into Newton Clinic. And remember, your blood pressure can help you catch serious illnesses like heart disease ahead of time. Monitoring your blood pressure is one of the simple ways you can take control of your health. When you see something unusual in your blood pressure, Newton Clinic is here to help you get to the bottom of it. Also sponsored by Lynette Baker, Halo Branded Solutions, Westside Java Coffee Bar, and the fine folks at Free Classified Weekly. Until next time, Out is out. See ya!